Week 15 in the NFL, and my parlays and player props are on the way. We got our normal 4 player props, which we are 18-6 over the past 6 weeks in this video, followed by our Moneyline parlay, which we cashed 2 weeks ago. Last week, we got 3 of 4 legs, lost to the Bengals in overtime. But let's be honest, we had a much bigger parlay on the horizon because, boom, the $16,000 parlay. Now, if you're confused, every subscriber milestone, which we just hit 16,000 subscribers, which give yourselves a round of applause, we do a parlay that pays out that exact amount, and we'll be doing an NBA one on Monday as well. So if the parlay hits, we give away half the winnings to all our subscribers. So all you got to do is really just click that subscribe button. It's 100% free. If you want to maybe get a couple bonus brownie points, you can click that like button too and share the video with a friend to help this call and our shot community grow day by day. Not a necessity. All you got to do is be subscribed. Now, we'll break down each of the legs at the end of the video. And as you see, parlays and player props, they've really been carrying our record. Spreads and over-under super hard to predict this far into the NFL season. Those books are all dialed in. They're super sharp. But I think we got a little bit of an edge on these player props, and we'll continue to kind of keep going in and going at it. Now, let's waste no more time. Dial on in. Beep, boop, beep, boop. Let's start with our first player prop of the day. Aaron Rodgers, under 23.5 completions, minus 115. I understand Rodgers, one of the best QBs that will ever play the game. And Rodgers, today, he's on the road. The Packers are on the road in Baltimore, taking on the Ravens. They're 7-point favorites in this game. Now, this line has been moving. It's been 5.5 now to 7. Don't really know where it'll end up. And I think it comes down to whether Lamar Jackson is playing. And I think that will really determine where the public lies in this one. But it won't change my analysis whether Lamar Jackson is out there or not. Now, as a whole, on this season, Rodgers played in 12 games so far this season. Gone under this line, 23.5 completions in 8 of the 12 games. Over the past 2 weeks, he actually has gone over this line, so congrats, Rodgers. But those 2 teams he's played, the Bears and the Rams. Now, we obviously know he owns the Bears. He has a part-time ownership stake. He's said it publicly. But also the Rams, you look at both these 2 teams in terms of time of possession. The Bears, the 10th lowest time of possession. They don't have the ball in their hands all that often. Now, Rams fans, they're laughing. I like, suck it, Bears. Well, Rams fans, you're even worse. You have the 6th lowest time of possession. So that just means you look at them, the Packers just have the ball in their hands more pass attempts and more completions. Well, today, they take on the Ravens, who currently have the #1 rated time of possession in the league. They have the ball the most, and I understand Lamar Jackson plays into that, but Huntley will be able to get it done in terms of dinking and dunking, running the ball a lot. And who's number 2? The Packers. They're actually number 2 in time of possession. They love to run the ball, both of them times. You look at that, both the 2 teams clashing together, we should see fewer possessions, and that means fewer pass attempts and hopefully fewer completions for Aaron Rodgers. Now, Rodgers on a whole, actually on the road, they don't throw it as much as you might think. Now, he's gone under in 5 of 6 road games so far this season, so 3 of the 4 games that he's actually gone over have been at home against teams that don't chew the clock like the Ravens will do today. Now you look at the Ravens, also their cornerbacks are all banged up, so we could see Rodgers take some shots deep to all his talented pass catchers. And heck, I'd prefer if a completion is deep rather than it is short, him dinking and dunking down the field. Either way, you look at the Ravens, they are giving up the most 20-plus yard completions in the NFL. You'll hear that stat in a little bit in another player prop. As a whole, you have to go all the way back to week 5 versus the Colts to find the last QB to hit this over 23.5 completions against the Ravens. That was Carson Wentz against the Colts. And yeah, that game went to overtime. I don't believe they got the ball, but still a crazy comeback for the Ravens in that one. Overall, 13 games this season. Only 3 quarterbacks have hit this over versus the Baltimore Ravens, and 2 of those were in week 1 and week 2. This defense is much different. And the Sharper books got this at minus 153. Great positive expected value bet to start the week 15. We'll ride with it. And they have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. They'll be running the ball all day today. Now let's move on to another player prop. Chris Godwin, over 73.5 receiving yards, minus 115 on Barstool. I like this up to like 80.5, depending on what your line is. But here we got the Sunday night football game, the Bucs versus the Saints. And yeah, we've talked about Chris Godwin, and we'll talk about him a little bit later as he's in the $16,000 parlay, which, like I said, if it cashes, half the winnings go to you guys. Now, Godwin has been a straight-up beast the past couple weeks, and really all season. I think he's, 2nd in the league in terms of reception, so his receptions propped up to like 7.5. It's crazy, but last week, he had 10 receptions, 105 yards. The week before, 15 for 143. And this week, they get them a great matchup against the Saints. And, opposing wide receivers have been feasting on him all season, except for his teammate, Mike Evans, who always struggles against Lattimore. He always just gets clamped up for whatever reason. But lucky for us, Godwin, we won't have to worry about Lattimore. He'll just have to feast in the slot or on the outside against the other Saints cornerbacks who've been getting absolutely burnt all season long. Now, these teams obviously play pretty frequently. Godwin earlier this season, 140 receiving yards versus them. He's hit this over in 3 of his past 5 games. And no Antonio Brown. Brashad Perriman just announced out, although he doesn't play a ton of snaps. And of course, they do have Gronkowski, who will be active. But love having no Godwin, love having no Brashad Perriman. I'll easily take this over up to nearly 80.5. I think we're doing another big Godwin day on Sunday Night Football as the Bucs finally try to get a hold of this Saints team that they haven't been able to beat with Tom Brady at the helm. Now, more on that a little bit later. I think he gets into the end zone. Now, the next one, another receiver, Devante Parker, over 54.5 receiving yards, minus 110 on Caesars. Parker almost made his way into the 16K parlay, but we'll just make him a straight play today. Now, Parker taking on my New York Jets. I don't love claiming that, especially at week 15. Don't even want to claim that in week 1. But regardless, the Jets, yeah, their receiving core, their cornerbacks all banged up. Now, Jalen Waddle, the star rookie wide receiver for the Dolphins, he might not play today. And if he does it, even better. If he does, I'm not worried about it. But if he does it, even more targets going to Parker and even Mike Gesicki probably. Now, if you look at it, Parker as a whole has hit this over in 3 straight games. Granted, each of the games is like a couple weeks apart from each other because he keeps getting injured. But he played last week, 2 weeks ago. Then they had the bye week last week, and he's ready to go tonight or on Sunday against my New York Jets. Now, Parker, he hasn't played the Jets since this time last year, I believe December 5th, 2020. He had 119 receiving yards. Now this line's cut in half, only 54.5. Obviously, the Jets cornerbacks and defense as a whole, not too great, but you'll see Gaskin. We'll talk about him in a second. But they're young, they're pretty banged up, and they give up a lot of plays. And that's what this plays right into, a lot of deep plays, plays right into the bread and butter of what Devante Parker is known as. A guy that goes down the field and makes contested catches. That's what he's great at. And you look at it, the Jets have given up 55 completions of 20-plus yards this season, the second most in the NFL. The only other team that has more, the Baltimore Ravens with 56. The Jets are like, no, that's our record. So regardless, Parker been pretty consistent lately. He should have the opportunity to see, 8 to 10 targets. Having projected for 4 to 5 receptions. That should be enough to get him over this 54.5 receiving yards. You look at it, yeah, like I said, the Believe Sportsbooks have his receptions line at like 5.5. Although it is juiced on the under, but still, I like Parker. I think he goes over this line. If you want to wait for maybe a more favorable line, wait till around 11:30. We see if Jalen Waddle is in or out. Now, if he gets ruled out, maybe there's more money comes in on Parker's over, so maybe the line goes up. But if he gets ruled in, then we might see some more. We might see Waddle's props come up, and then you might see Devante Parker go down a little bit. Either way, we're super comfortable at 54.5, and I'll ride with it. Now, my last player prop of the video before we get into the Moneyline parlay, and we break down the $16,000 parlay. Ryan Tannehill over 28.5 passing attempts, minus 122 on FanDuel. Now listen, I don't like talking a whole lot of Ryan Tannehill these days, and the Steelers' rushing defense was Swiss cheese last week on Thursday Night Football as Dalvin Cook kept running up and down the field, over 200 rushing yards. And if it were up to the Titans, they'd probably want to run it every play. But I expect the Steelers' defense to be a little bit embarrassed after that game last week. They'll sell out to stop the run, especially at home. Now, on the whole this season, Tannehill played in 13 games, hit the over in 7 of them, so not too bad. We're on the positive side of 50%, including last week when they still blew out the Jaguars 20-0. He still hit that, and that was because Tannehill finally got a weapon back. He finally got Julio Jones back, still without A.J. Brown, but still that Julio Jones really helps the offense in terms of receiving and just throwing the ball. Now, Tannehill, his season's been up and down all year. I mean, you talk about he's been primarily without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones majority of the year. Obviously, Derrick Henry's kind of gone, and no offense to the other pass catchers for Tennessee, I wouldn't blame the Titans for not throwing it to you guys either. I would want to rely on the run game, rely on your defense to win games. That's what they had been doing. But now we got Julio Jones back. They should be able to throw it more. Now, if you talk about QBs against the Steelers as a whole, let's talk about it. In 13 games, 10 of them have hit the over. The only 3 times that someone went under, Joe Burrow went under twice. It was 2 of the 3 QBs. The other one was Jared Goff in a game that was the tie game. They ran it 39 times, like 34 times with Swift. Yeah, exactly. Now, Big Ben notoriously plays better at home, so maybe we'll see the Steelers put up a little bit more points than you might expect from them on the road. Either way, the Steelers' defense has not been all that great, but I think they'll try to sell out and stop the run, make someone else like Ryan Tannehill beat them. Also, one of the biggest reasons, sharper books have this over at minus 170, an absolute smash of a positive expected value bet. I love what we have here, and I'll be riding with Ryan Tannehill to not only have a pretty good game, but also go over 28.5 passing attempts. Now, on to the Moneyline parlay, and we were so close last week. We cashed 2 weeks ago. Now we're on to the last week. Just missed by the Bengals in overtime. Just a facepalm. We should have had that one. But this week, honestly, super tough to bet a Moneyline parlay. I don't like moving on into games on Monday and Tuesday, so I'm going to only give you 4 legs. It's only plus 239 value. You see it on the left, maybe on the right. Don't know how this editing goes. We're taking the Bills, the Cowboys, the Steelers, and the Packers. Now, Bills, what are they? 12.5-point favorites they're at home against Carolina Panthers. Yeah, I'll just take them. Carolina Panthers they're on the downtrend. Sorry, Panthers fans. Sorry, Logan. Dallas Cowboys, next one. They're taking on the Giants. Who knows who the Giants got out there, but they're still 11.5-point underdogs. I think maybe the Giants keep this one close, but I still do think the Cowboys are finally getting it rolling, finally getting a little bit healthier. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott's out there a little bit better. He's been bad as of late, so I'll ride with them. Now the Green Bay Packers are the third kind of safest leg on this one. They're taking on the Ravens, and while Lamar Jackson could keep this game close if he is active, I still do think the Packers win this one outright. They're just far more talented team. The Ravens have really struggled all season long in terms of they really just won a lot of close games, having to come back. I don't think they'll be able to do that against Rodgers. The most sketchy leg, the Steelers. Of course it's sketchy. The Steelers have been bad, but a lot of people want to keep counting them out, and I don't blame them because they haven't been good. And I don't blame you for counting them out, but it is still Mike Tomlin, still going for that record of never having a losing season. And I think they get it done at home. Big Ben, he's already said this is probably his last year being the quarterback of the Steelers, probably last year in general of being a quarterback. So I think they get it done in Heinz Field, one of his last career games. The team will be amped up. So will the fans, and the Tennessee Titans. I love them. I picked a Ryan Tannehill over prop today, and it would help if the Steelers were leading in this game. So I'll ride with the Steelers money line in this one. Obviously, it's basically a pick 'em. So 4 legs plus 239. I love the value on it. Now will be the money line parlay. Now it's the $16,000 parlay time. That's what you guys have been waiting for, and let's get into it. And I'll start with the bottom. We'll go to the bottom. Chris Godwin, anytime touchdown. Godwin had a touchdown in 5 of his last 8 games versus the Saints. We obviously know they aren't necessarily the greatest at stopping opposing wide receivers. Saints have a great rush defense too, so we should see Godwin get a lot of targets, and maybe they'll try to give him some chip screen plays and get him into the end zone. Plus he hasn't scored in a couple weeks. He's 100% due. Now the next one, CeeDee Lamb. I love him that he's returned to the slot. Hasn't had 100 plus receiving yards in a couple weeks, but I feel like he's due, especially against the Giants. I think he's due for a big game. He had 100 plus receiving yards in his first ever game against the Giants. I think he does it again tonight. Now Myles Gaskin, 80 plus rushing yards. If you look at the Dolphins running back depth chart, yeah, it's a big yikes. They got a lot of people coming in and out. They got elevating people off the practice squad left and right. Gaskin, he sees the majority of the workload, 15 to 20 carries a game. Had 23 carries versus the Jets last time they played earlier this season. He set this over in 2 straight games versus the New York Jets. And like I said, the Jets give up the 3rd most rushing yards per game. They aren't good at a lot of things, let's be honest. Now the final 2 legs, both first touchdown scores. That means they got to score the first touchdown in the game. Both the first same name. And if your name is James, drop a comment down below. First one, we'll go with James Robinson. Finally, he's been relinquished from Urban Meyer and the Jags. I don't know what Urban Meyer had out for James Robinson and maybe even Josh Lambo, but we don't need to talk about that. Now, though, I think they'll get James Robinson into the end zone early. I don't love this Texans team as a whole, so really we're just banking on James Robinson to get the first touchdown of the game. I think he's got a good chance to not only do that, maybe just as a whole get into the end zone as is. He's really good, one of the most talented running backs that really doesn't get a lot of love, whether it's buying jerseys or in fantasy football, but he's awesome. I'm relying on him to get in the end zone. That would be fitting just after, James Robinson didn't play a whole lot. Trevor Lawrence is even told Urban Meyer, get this guy on the field, and they just refuse to do it. So I like him. And then James Conner, who's anytime touchdown is minus 220, taking on the Lions. And this guy's a touchdown hog. I mean, he gets into the end zone nonstop every single week. I don't know how many games in a row he scored a touchdown. Just counting on him to get in the first one. Plus, you're without DeAndre Hopkins. Who knows what they're doing with the receiving game. They'll probably rely on the run game today, especially at their 12.5 point favorites against the Lions. With James Conner. So we'll just recap: James Conner, James Robinson, both any first touchdown scores. Myles Gaskin, 80 plus rushing yards. CeeDee Lamb, 100 plus receiving yards. And of course, Chris Godwin, anytime touchdown. Now, if all 5 of those legs hit and then we get a $16,000 payout, yeah, half of it's going to you guys that are subscribed to the channel. So make sure you click that subscribe button. We would appreciate it a ton. And of course, stay gnarly, my friends. We're going to have a great weekend, great NFL Week 15. Let's go kill these Bucs. Let's have a great one. Peace out.